The Palace of Topkapi is the second palace built by the Ottoman dynasty here in Istanbul at the time of Sultan Mehmet, the conqueror of Constantinople, in between the years of 1460 and 1478. A palace which kept on growing larger with the new additions until 1856. The entrance to the palace is through the Cannon Gate, so called because of the two cannons on both sides in order to guard this palace was placed. It has a very typical style of a tower-like structure with the addition of a tent at the top. Of course, the background of the Turkish people is coming from the Asian continent, and they were nomads. So this design of a tent, when they settled in a major city like Istanbul, and it formed a triangulated shape, which is the tower-like structure we see today. The two towers on both sides welcomes you with the monogram and the seal of the Sultan who founded the palace. And for the next 391 years, the Ottoman sultans, all 25 of them, have lived in this palace. From this palace, they moved on to another one along the Bosphorus, which is called the Dolmabahce Palace. In the second half of the 19th century, the palace grounds covers an area of 700,000 square meters, with some 20 exhibition halls and some 86,000 artifacts. It is one of the richest museums in the world. The palace is formed around 4 different courtyards, and this is where the difference appears between an Oriental palace and a European palace, because in the Oriental palaces we have courtyards with buildings around it, surrounding the courtyards, and there is no symmetry on the right side versus the left side of an Oriental palace, whereas in the European palaces, everything is under one single roof, and if there is a left aisle extending out of the single roofed building, there will be always a symmetric right aisle coming out in parallel, forming the uniformity in the European palaces, like the ones in the Buckingham Palace, the Versailles, the Louvre, the Schönbrunn in Vienna, or the Pitti Palace in Florence. When you walk into the grounds of Topkapi Palace, into the second courtyard, you notice some 20 chimneys on the right side, and that is the old kitchens of Topkapi Palace, where some 1,108 cooks worked, feeding the 5,000 residents who lived in the palace. Of course, the palace is where the Sultan's family lived, along with the guards, the janissaries, the paid soldiers of the Sultans, and the harem section, where the ladies of the Sultan lived, would be to the left-hand side, where you see the beautiful Justice Tower, rising to 45 meters in height, has a commanding view of the Asian and the European continents. It's interesting that this tower is called the Justice Tower, where Sultan would give away justice. Justice, what the world needs in our times, was very important because of the commandments of the Muslim faith upon the Ottoman dynasty. Going through the Gate of Felicity, it will take us into the third courtyard, and on the right side at that time you have, with 2 domes, the 4 rooms of Treasury Department, where some of the richest jewelry collection in the world is on exhibit, including the Topkapi dagger from the motion picture Topkapi of 1964, as well as several beautiful emeralds, thrones of the sultans, are all on exhibit overlooking the Bosphorus. To the left side of this third courtyard, we have the Holy Relics Department, where some of the Christian and Muslim relics are on exhibit. The fourth and the final courtyard is the Topkapi waterfront, overlooking the Bosphorus, the Golden Horn, and the Sea of Marmara, is where there is a beautiful restaurant with this lovely view, and Istanbul is never complete unless you have this wonderful view in front of this restaurant. Also in the first courtyard of Topkapi Palace, we have Saint Irene Church, which was never converted into a mosque and was used as a church until it was converted into a museum in the 19th century and was used as the imperial mint. Within the grounds of Topkapi Palace, one of the other museums we have today is the Archaeological Museum. More than 1 million historical artifacts makes this museum the 5th biggest archaeological museum in the world. We have artifacts from the Balkans, Africa, Anatolia, Mesopotamia, the Arabian Peninsula, Afghanistan, and many of the Ottoman Empire states. The column of Constantine the Great was erected on the second hill of Constantinople to mark the event of relocating his capital from Rome to Constantinople in 330 AD. He placed his statue on top, and today it's shorter than the original, and the porphyry pieces are strapped, securing the column by iron bands against the earthquakes. Underneath this column lies the burial grounds for the family of Constantine, and there's especially a small room housing the holy relics belonging to Jesus and to earlier Christian era, brought here by Helen, the mother of Constantine the Great. Grand Bazaar is one of the oldest markets in the world, dating back to 1461, with some 60 streets, over 4,000 shops, a must-see in Istanbul. Handmade carpets, jewelry are some of the best examples of the Turkish art are sold here, with a certificate of authenticity backed by solid guarantees. Silverware, souvenirs, decorative items, ceramics, leather goods, superior quality of Iznik and Kütahya tiles, folkloric costumes and accessories are all sold here. The spice market of Istanbul is located in Eminönü, right next to the new mosque, which was constructed and opened in 1664 by architect Kazım Ağa. A market for herbs and spices, natural medicines, vegetable roots, dried fruits, fish, and delicate essence are all sold here. You must try the Turkish delight and coffee. Coffee came from South Yemen at the time of Sultan Süleyman the Magnificent, and he gave the okay for it to be exported to different parts of the Ottoman Empire. This is how the European coffee culture has its roots, going back to the spice market in Istanbul. Istanbul Gar, the Sirkeci train station, was inaugurated on November the 3rd in 1890 and was commissioned and built by Yazmund, a German engineer and architect. It was built by granite and local marble stones. The Orient Express is the oldest and the most luxurious train ride in the world, began its maiden journey in 1883 and concluded it here. Agatha Christie's novel Murder on the Orient Express took place here. Many more celebrities traveled by this train to arrive in Istanbul, such as John Lennon, Winston Churchill, Paul Newman, the Rolling Stones, and Catherine Deneuve. When the Orient Express train service began, lack of quality hotels in Istanbul was the problem, so the Pera Palace Hotel was built and opened in 1892 by the Vagonli Company. In the Pera Palace Hotel, one can visit the room of Agatha Christie on the 4th floor in room 411.